Mawson, Australia's oldest research base. Only then can you unload essential fuel and heavy cargo. By March, sea ice is again closing Mawson Harbour. Resupply becomes inefficient, then impossible. This is the first Australian icebreaker, the Aurora Australis. It will, it's hoped, get through the ice barrier early in the summer, where so many others have failed, and so extend the too brief Antarctic supply season. If you're going to have an Antarctic research program, you need to be confident you can resupply it. On this voyage, which is the Aurora Australis's second only to Antarctica, the captain is going to try to break right into Mawson Harbour through over a metre of sea ice. If he succeeds in doing so, the Aurora Australis will be the first vessel to have reached Mawson so early in the season. Put to the test will be the Australis's reinforced bow, designed to cut and slice rather than crush ice up to 1.2 metres thick. That's not much by international ice-breaking standards, but in a cost-benefit analysis, it was considered sufficient for Australia's needs. Importantly, with our strong environmental stance on Antarctica, the ship has no fuel tanks in its outer hull, making an oil spill, even in the event of an accident, unlikely. 4 of the 5,000 kilometres to Antarctica are through the stormy southern latitudes, the roaring 40s and furious 50s. So the Australis was designed and equipped not just to break ice, but to stay remarkably stable in swells that often exceed 5 metres. That's important because there's a whole array of laboratories aboard, for everything from oceanographers to marine biologists.
Here we've got the ship to take them down there in comfort, and also so they can work on the way down there. Their time's not wasted.
As we cross the Antarctic Circle at 66 degrees south, other science efforts aboard are also gearing up.
Antarctic petrel overnight.
Such as the hourly survey of Southern Ocean seabirds.
3 more Antarctic petrels.
Are they new ones or have they gone around some? So that's about 7 Antarctic petrels and an emperor penguin, a couple of snow petrels, Cape petrel and a southern fulmar, and that's just in the 10 minutes of this hour that we've been watching.
Oh, well, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Not bad.
The ice grows thicker, but it's still what's known as pack ice that's been broken up. The single solid ice front, the fast ice, is not far off.
VIB Mawson, this is Aurora Australis on 5400.
Roger, we took some ice conditions for you a day or two ago. Ice thickness in Kista Strait is 1.2 metres. In the harbour, 1.4 metres.
We arrive at the fast ice edge in early December 1990. A corridor called Iceberg Alley leads directly south to Mawson. This is where the real icebreaking begins, and almost immediately our speed is cut from the 13 knots in open sea to less than 1 knot. We're now 13 days out from Hobart, deep into the fast ice. That's the solid ice that this early in the summer extends 60 kilometres from the coast. The ice here is about 1.2 to 1.4 metres thick. That's slightly above the official capabilities of the ship. But on top of that, there's a further 0.5 metre of claggy snow. So, as you can see, the Australis is finding the going pretty slow. So begins 12 hours of ramming the snow-covered ice. With each run, we make only a ship-length's progress, around 100 metres. Then it's a cumbersome reverse and reposition.
It's kind of like break ice through a jam sandwich. It's very, very sticky on the top of the ice, and it absorbs a lot of the power from the engines. Consequently, it slows us up a bit, so we have to do a bit of backing and ramming, where normally we just carry on. We have to go through this neck of the woods here, and as long as the snow's on top of the ice, it'll slow us up.
From the air, the problem becomes clear. The ship cuts easily through the channel it's already broken, but once it starts breaking fresh ice, snow adheres right along the hull. The Australis has made just 15 kilometres through the fast ice after 12 hours and huge amounts of diesel. The ice-breaking attempt is abandoned. The ice barrier and the infamous Antarctic conditions, known as the A factor, have won again. Still, the Antarctic Division doesn't count the Australis a failure. They'll reserve judgment on their new icebreaker for a fairer test. But offloading must now be done by chopper.
Hey David, get that box over there.
For the next 4 days, the 3 helicopters aboard run a constant taxi shuttle the last 60 kilometres into Mawson, ferrying expeditioners, fresh food and all the cargo their holds can carry. The Australis turns back to the fast ice edge. Still aboard is some equipment and fuel that will go right back to Hobart before being brought south all over again on a voyage later in the summer, when the sea ice will have briefly released its grip on our Antarctic bases.
And that's Quantum for this week. Next week,
Scientists at Commonwealth Bay faced winter tempests of up to 300 kilometres an hour. The challenge was simply to stay alive. But no longer. These days, most Antarctic expeditioners spend most of their time in warm, comfortable buildings. The challenge of wintering here is no longer a matter of fighting to survive and stay fed. No, the main challenge for the modern Antarctic expeditioner is coping with the stress of being cut off from the people you love and locked into a small, isolated community.
The NDB with a non-directional beacon.
For 8 months, the 30 or so people at each of Australia's 3 bases see only each other all day, every day. 90% of them are men, from all social classes and many walks of life, from physicists to plumbers.
Oh yeah, we've got to look after the boffins, you know. Like, I'd say within a week's time it'll start to look like a building, so.
It's a hothouse environment in the deep freeze. So applicants must pass extensive personality and psychological screening tests before they're allowed south.
I still had the backstage.
But no screening is perfect. The enforced intimacy is too much for some. This home video taken last winter at Davis shows it all starts harmlessly enough. As the last of the summer expeditioners head for their ship, they're given the traditional farewell, a flower shower. For those left behind, there's a winter to prepare for.
Dad, I wonder if you'd pour us a beer, eh?
Essential supplies to be stockpiled. And a little perfecting of home brewing techniques. Then a last autumn outdoor party.
Give my sonnies, please.
Very soon you only go outdoors when the job demands. Then midwinter, 6 weeks of almost constant darkness. The sensory deprivation is extreme. No vegetation, no wildlife, no sounds but the blizzards. The winter blues hit home. The constant darkness makes sleep difficult. Alcohol abuse can become a problem.
The man in Gladrep is about to have his head shaved.
A touch of polar madness sets in.
Off, off, down dog. Down dog, down.
One of the guys down there who used to sit opposite one particular individual almost every night and comb his beard with his fork. And it annoyed the bloke that he was sitting opposite, but of course that's the sort of thing that people do tolerate.
The few deaths at Australian bases have been from natural causes. There have been no murders. That doesn't mean it hasn't come close. There are tales of violent standoffs with meat cleavers and ice axes, of people who refuse to speak for weeks, and other people, even station leaders, who are ostracised for months by the whole group because of their behaviour. Now, these are isolated examples, but they show that people who are deemed to be completely sane individually can act very strangely in these circumstances. It's clear not everyone copes with an Antarctic winter. To see whether the initial selection of expeditioners is at fault, the Australian Antarctic Division has begun a new series of confidential tests. Yeah, hi. So if I were just coming back from winter in Antarctica, what would you want to know from me?
We get people to do peer ratings on the people that were on station with them that relate to various qualities that those individuals have. Those qualities are value as an expeditioner, consideration of others, and social value to the group. And I might say to somebody, I want you to order these photographs, keeping in mind the particular quality that we're working on at the moment, and try to order the people for me, first of all, on value as an expeditioner. Start from the top.
Essentially, each winterer is asked to pass judgment on how well all their fellow winterers performed. A painful task, but important. Over the next few years, these tests may show many winterers behaved very differently to the way their pre-departure tests predicted. If that's the case, the selection procedures will be improved. With spring comes relief of stresses on base. Most people are eager to be heading home. But with the first mail in 8 months, there's one last stress to be faced.
We quite often get reports of marriages that either break up while the people are away or shortly after they come back because of adjustment problems they have when the members come back.
So there's a Dear John letter or two in every mail dispatch?
Unfortunately, yes. A couple of the people I'm going to see this time have received those kinds of letters.
But this story is not all isolation and agony on ice.
You give them a music.
Hey, good to see you. No worries.
Wintering gives the vast majority of expeditioners a new sense of achievement and direction when they return home. In fact, looking back on their year in Antarctica, whatever the stresses have been, almost all count it the best year of their lives.
Stop that, please.
That's it from Quantum tonight. Next week,